Good morning, everybody. This is Alan Galang, neuro-linguistic programming instructor and clinical hypnosis practitioner. Today's tip, and again, got a few minutes to share today before I head out the door, so I thought of you. I wanted to share a quick tip on what makes change long-term, like what makes us transform and change in terms of our behavior, in terms of the way we act, in terms of the way that we show up to stress. When stressful situations get in front of us, how do we make that shift into something more useful, something more impactful in a good way, and something that we can use for the duration of our life, no matter what the problem is? Well, again, let me pull up my trusting notes so I don't go overboard. Here we go. Okay. So the number one way that we've learned to do that using clinical hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming is by focusing on the shift of our identity. Now, I'll give you two versions. I'm going to give you my notes version, and then I'll give you an example after of how I've used this in real life. So, identity. What is an identity in terms of neurolinguistic programming language, or the ability to change the way we perceive ourselves and our lives? That's really what it boils down to. What is an identity in NLP? Definition in NLP, identity refers to the deep-seated beliefs and self-concepts that define who you are. It's the core sense of self that influences your thoughts, your behaviors, and your emotions. Components. Identity includes beliefs, what you believe to be true about yourself, values, what's important to you, self-image, how you see yourself, roles, the roles you assume in various contexts, like as you're a parent, you're a professional, a friend, etc. Now, level of importance to really know who you are in terms of identity. Your identity shapes your responses and situations. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Your identity shapes your responses to situations, especially stressful ones. It acts as a filter for your experience and influences how you interpret and react to them. So why focus on identity to improve behavior? Number one, consistency. People tend to act in ways that they are consistent with their identity. Changing their behavior is easier when it aligns with a new and revised identity or belief of who you are. Empowerment. A strong positive identity provides a foundation for resilient and resourceful behavior. Long-term change. Shifting your identity can lead to lasting behavioral changes as it modifies the underlying beliefs driving your actions. Next part. This explains how does NLP help change identity. So number one, identifying limiting beliefs. And you do that through awareness. First step is awareness. NLP techniques help you become aware of the limiting beliefs that are part of your current identity. NLP techniques help you become aware of the limiting beliefs that are part of your current identity. Next is patterns. Patterns. Recognizing patterns of thought and behavior that stem from loose beliefs. Number two is reframing. So how do you do reframing? Well, you do reframing from changing perspectives, using reframing techniques to shift negative or limiting self-beliefs to a more positive and empowering one. Next step is new meanings. Once we're assigning something new, like a new meaning, a positive meaning to past experiences and beliefs, that then helps to change our identity, and it helps to change our behavior in given situations, especially in stressful ones. Next step, number 3, is anchoring new beliefs. So how do you anchor new beliefs? Well, you anchor, and what anchor means is just like, how do you sink that in? So your body becomes familiar, your mind becomes familiar with just automatically responding in a new, improved, and positive way. Anchoring beliefs is through, number 1, positive anchors. Creating a positive anchor and reinforce positive emotional states and beliefs through NLP anchoring techniques. Anchoring techniques is just basically something like, anything that just brings back a memory or a feeling. Once you see it, feel it, taste it, touch it, smell it. Okay. So imagine it real quick. For example, imagine a time when you were young. Is there a song that you grew up with that every time you heard that song, it just warmed your heart? It just made you feel really good, even if it was just for a brief moment. If you think hard enough, you might be playing one in your head right now. And you might not even thought of it for quite some time until I just brought it up to you in this moment. That is an example of anchoring. That's auditory anchoring. There's also kinesthetic, visual, smell, taste anchors. And we'll get into that in a future video. Okay. Anchoring new beliefs. The next step is to do consistent reinforcement, practicing and reinforcing new beliefs until they become a natural part of your identity. So that's an example of feeling good when you hear the song. That's also an anchor when, if you think about this one, think about a time when you knew someone, either present or past, where even just hearing the sound of their voice or just seeing their face, it just made you smile. It just made you smile. Did you ever have someone like that? Where either as a young child or as a teenager or even as an adult, the moment you see their face or you hear their voice or you even hear their name, it brings even just a moment of just feeling really good, either about the situation, about that person, or about yourself. Just notice the emotional state that happens, the state change. It just happens in a second, in a moment. That is another form of consistent reinforcement through positive anchors, right? It's consistently reinforced because every time you think about that person, it changes the way you feel, and you don't even have to try. That's where you know it's already been embedded into your subconscious. Okay. That example can also be used towards turning off or untriggering anger responses. Next is visualization and mental rehearsal. Well, what is that? Well, what it is number 1, through this thing called future pacing. So future pacing is visualizing a new identity and how you would behave in stressful situations with this new self concept. So future pacing literally means just think of a time in the future of how you might fall into a situation that would normally stress you out. And just notice with this new identity you have, once it's been anchored into you, notice how you show up differently. Now, you might be thinking that now. You might be thinking, oh, I think the same. What are you talking about, Alan? Well, remember that this process has to be practiced. So it is something that you can learn quickly. However, it is something that must be practiced in order to show up effectively. All right. The next one is mental rehearsal. So through visualization and mental rehearsal, the mental rehearsal part is regularly practicing mental scenarios where you respond to stress in line with your new identity. So what we do in a private one-to-one session, once we've done the change work with a client, for example, what we'll do is we'll ask them, we'll say, hey, can you think of a time in the future where you're going to be in a similar situation like this that in the past would have caused you a certain level of stress? Think about yourself in that future scenario, see everything that you're going to see, hear everything that you're going to hear in this future moment. And just tell us, with this new identity, how is it different for you now? That's almost precisely the question I'll ask a client. And you know what's amazing? in 95% of the case, 5% because sometimes people just get too tired or they think about something else or they get lost in the moment. But 95% of people, they'll usually say something like, holy Alan, like I imagine being in that time in the future, like I'm going to be there in a week, a month, a year from now. And it's just different. Like I see my mom's face, for example. I see the coworker. I see, the altercation that I got into with that person on the street. I see that person cutting me off while I'm driving on the road, but I don't see the road rage. Like I don't feel angry. I'm not angry about my mom. I'm not, pissed off at my brother, sister, sibling. I'm not upset about my boss anymore. Instead, I'm feeling this other thing. And then they'll go on to tell me about how either they'll feel remorse or they'll feel happy or they'll feel neutral. Like they're like, I don't feel anything. I've never felt this before. Like I feel nothing. I don't even know why I'm not feeling nothing, but I'm not mad. Just kind of there. Or sometimes they will still feel anger, but it's gone from like an 8, 9, 10 all the way down to a level 1 or 2, in which case it's very controllable. And they usually say something like, Alan, I'm actually glad I still have some of that anger because it reminds me to stay away from that person. It reminds me to keep that person at a distance. It reminds me that my health is more important than getting angry. So maybe I shouldn't spend as much time with them. Or it reminds me that the next time this person does X, I need to set some boundaries so it does not happen again. So now anger is more of a server for them versus a controller. Okay? And that's what can happen for you too. The next step is behavioral integration. Behavioral integration. Now, what is that? What that means is that you're taking concrete action that align with the new identity, reinforcing the new self-concept through real life experiences. In other words, you're just going to take action once you have this new identity, and you're going to take action towards going towards those things that would normally cause you some anger. And just seeing how you show up differently instead of getting so angry, whether it's an altercation with the spouse or a disagreement with the kids, or getting a lecture from the boss, or being the boss and having to lecture your employees, whatever the case is, just getting into that environment. So you're not avoiding the problem, but instead you're facing the problem and you're growing because of it. Feedback loop. The next one is called feedback loop. Continuously assessing and adjusting the behavior to stay consistent with your new identity. I think that's probably self-explanatory. So some example processes. Old identity. I'm someone who gets overwhelmed easily. To make that shift, we do something called identity limiting beliefs. So limiting belief is something that we believe about ourselves that does not help us grow. It keeps us stagnant. It shrinks us and makes us look at ourselves less than who we actually are. Identity limiting belief is recognize thoughts like, I can't handle stress. That is a limiting belief, because under certain contexts, we can all handle stress, and we can handle stress much better in certain environments than in other ones. So noticing that's a limiting belief allows us to attack the belief, the limiting belief, versus the person, versus ourselves, versus the given situation. Okay. Reframe. Talked about this from yesterday's video. Change it to, I can learn and grow from challenging situations. Another way of putting this is talking to the subconscious, and instead of making the statement, we can say something like a question, like, how can I learn and grow from this challenging situation? And do it with the intention that your brain will eventually give you an answer. Maybe not in the moment, not in the second, not in the minute, but subconscious is funny. When you leave it with a question and you have a sincere expectation that your brain's going to give you an answer, it'll give you an answer during the times you least expect it. Sometimes you'll be in the bathroom, in the shower, driving the car. Sometimes you'll just be sitting at a restaurant or at your kitchen table, sipping your coffee, having breakfast, and all of a sudden, boom, the answer comes up and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Okay. Next one is anchor. Use a positive memory or visualization to create a sense of calm and confidence. So again, an anchor, thinking about something in your past or something in your present that gives you a positive feeling and letting that feeling sink in. Usually a physicality is included. When I first started learning this, I used to slap my chest. So I'd think of an anchor, I let that feeling sink in, it would feel good. I'd slap my chest. See the anchor, visualize it, let it sink in, hit that feeling hits me, slap my chest, feeling, slap my chest, feeling, slap my chest. And the repetition over and over again would click into my nervous system. Now, I'm telling you this from personal experience. I built my anchor. So my anchor is this. I'll slap and I'll snap my finger. Slap and I'll snap my finger. And just by doing this, instantly it starts to give me this feeling of power, of confidence, which was really useful during times that I felt alone, scared, unsure, uncertain, short-tempered, like you name it. This thing hit hard for me because I built it during a time I needed it the most. You'll find that very effective communicators, all of them, 99% of them actually have an anchor that they use to control their stress levels. So it's not uncommon for those who can excel in their communication and in their self-control. Anchors are very commonly used. Okay. So that's the anchor example. Moving on to visualization. Picture yourself handling a stressful situation with ease and confidence. That one starts to happen naturally as you build your anchor. Next one is act. Start taking small steps in real situations to respond calmly, reinforcing your new identity. So as mentioned earlier, once you've created the new anchor, once you've locked it in by building an anchor, and you've done that over and over and over and over again in your mind and just physically, it doesn't have to be a slap. You know, I've got a client that just literally scratches her side here. I got another one who, she's a comedian. She like pulls her ear every single time and she like squeezes her nose. And it actually turned out that it made her so confident and people loved it because she did it on stage, that she actually started using that as part of her act. And it was actually really cute. It worked. It got her to go top 3 in this comedy act show that she was participating in. Whatever your anchor is for you, build it. Whatever you build, consistently do it exactly the same way each and every time. So once you have the identity and then you follow that up with the anchor and you remove some limiting beliefs, then you act. That's the last part. Start putting yourself back in those environments that would normally stress you out. And just notice that by using your anchor, however it is that you create your anchor, notice how much more empowering the anchor is that overrides the old feelings and the old identity of becoming really stressed out. So I'm closing off my last notes. By focusing on transforming your identity, NLP helps you develop a stronger, more positive self-concept of yourself, of you, that supports resilience and the adaptive behaviors, especially in stressful situations. So I know that today was a mouthful. If you have any questions on this, if you have any comments, please feel free to share. I know that when it comes to certain NLP techniques, it's not always easy to just practice because like some of them are really like grade 1 level and some of them are intermediate. Some of them, even in today's explanation, even though I just spit that out in 20 minutes, some of them actually take days and weeks to practice. So if you don't get it right away, it's okay. Let me know in the comments which part worked for you. Let me know which part of the comment in the comment section. Let me know what was confusing or uncertain for you. Whatever it is that you need help with, I'm willing to create video here and stay live so we can interact. Because my goal here is really to help you understand how to use these techniques as Helen has, as I have, as millions of other people have as well, to help you transform the way that you look at yourself, the way you see yourself, and the way that you show up under stress. So that way, getting angry isn't something that controls you during stressful situations, but instead you have the ability, you have the emotional and mental authority over yourself to control your anger during the times that you need to the most. I hope that's been helpful. Have yourself a great morning, great afternoon, great day, whenever you're watching. And I'll see you on the next video.